Welcome to this targeted explainer from the IELTS Focus. Today, we're jumping right into a top-scoring model answer for a really common essay topic, work-related stress, and whether the government should be the one to step in.
So, here's what we're going to do. First, we'll break down the essay question itself. Then, we'll dig into the arguments about why stress is such a big deal. And finally, and this is the really good stuff, we're going to pull out the exact vocabulary and killer phrases that push this essay into that top band score.
All right, first things first, we've got to get crystal clear on the task. It's so easy to lose points just by not quite getting what the question is asking, so let's make sure we nail this from the start.
Okay, so take a look. The key thing to notice here isn't just work stress. Nope. It's about whether the government should be the one to step in. The question is demanding you take a side on that specific point. That's the core of it. Okay, so now let's see how this model answer actually builds its case. It's really smart. It starts by laying down a super strong foundation, explaining exactly why work stress has blown up into such a huge issue.
So the first reason it gives, it's all about economic pressure. And what's so clever about this is how it links a huge, big picture idea, more competition for jobs, to something really specific and real. Employers putting the squeeze on their workers. See? It's not just some vague concept. It's a clear cause and effect chain.
And just look at this beautiful, logical chain. We've got the cause, the effect, and the result. This kind of A to B to C structure, this is exactly what examiners are looking for. It just screams clear, logical thinking and makes your argument so easy to follow.
All right, on to the second big factor, technology. Now, the essay doesn't just say, smartphones are bad. It's way smarter than that. It points to the expectation that technology creates. And that, right there, is a much more sophisticated and high-level point to make. And here we go again with that awesome cause and effect structure. The tech leads to a new kind of work culture, and that culture leads to a really powerful conclusion. The old 9-to-5 office boundaries, they've basically just disappeared. So, after laying out these two big reasons, the essay hits us with a clear, unavoidable result, a workforce that is just completely burned out. And this perfectly sets the stage for what comes next in the argument. Okay, so the problem has been laid out perfectly. Now the essay makes a turn, a pivot, to answer that central question. Why should the government be the one to fix this? Why not someone else? Okay, you're going to want to pay close attention to this next move, because it's a really high-level technique. The writer actually brings up a counter-argument, the idea that, hey, maybe the government can't really help. But then right away, they signal they're about to tear that argument down. That shows so much confidence and skill. And how do they do it? How do they prove that counter-argument wrong? Well, they use a solid, real-world example. They talk about the experiment with the 4-day work week and show the clear, positive result. People were not only less stressed, they were actually more productive. How great is that? And this right here, this is the final killer link in the chain. The success of that experiment is used as proof, as direct evidence that government action works, and it leads to this powerful conclusion. Businesses probably aren't going to make these changes unless someone, like the government, forces them to. All right, so we've seen the logic is rock solid. Now, let's pop the hood and look at the engine, the language that makes this thing go. Honestly, this is the stuff that separates a pretty good essay from a truly fantastic one. First up, the word intervention. This is pretty much the perfect academic word for when the government gets involved. It's formal, it's precise, and it just sounds way more sophisticated than saying government help or involvement. Next up, sustainable. In the model answer, it says that the high levels of stress are not sustainable. This is such a great way to argue that, look, things can't go on like this. We're at a breaking point, and something's got to give. Then there's the word gauge. This was used to describe what the 4-day workweek experiment was trying to do. It's just a much classier verb than measure or check. It suggests, a really careful and thoughtful assessment. And of course, productive. This word is so important because it hits on a major concern for businesses, right? The essay cleverly shows that working fewer hours doesn't hurt productivity. In fact, it can make it even better. Okay. Last but not least, let's pull out some full phrases that you can totally steal and adapt for your own essays. Seriously, think of these as little Lego blocks for building a fluent, high-scoring argument. Check this one out. Run the risk of. This is just a brilliant phrase for talking about what could go wrong, the negative consequences.
It sounds so much more natural and advanced than just saying they might lose their job.
Or how about this one? The office now extends into the home. That is such a great descriptive way to talk about how work-life balance is basically gone. It paints a really clear picture in your mind, doesn't it?
Here's a good one. Meet their targets. This is a classic piece of business lingo. Using it shows that you can talk about work topics using the right kind of specific language. It's a really nice touch. And this phrase, act on behalf of. This is perfect for saying exactly who an action is supposed to help. It makes it super clear that the government is stepping in for the workers to represent their interests.
So look, the real goal here isn't just to memorize these words and phrases. It's about making them your own. Really think about it. How could you use a phrase like run the risk of in an essay about, say, public health? Or act on behalf of when you're talking about education? Taking this language and actively using it in different contexts, that's the real key. That's how you master it.